I was spending some time at my grandparents' home one day, and during the course of the visit, we began discussing some current issues and things that were being addressed in the news. And I can recall that we discussed everything from politics to local news. However, that's not what I remember most about the conversation. I remember a statement my grandfather made. After reviewing all the topics, he said, "We don't know how to fight for anything anymore." Now, I was a little confused, so I just asked him to clarify, to explain what he meant. Well, he said, "We've become a bunch of pansies." Now, it was years later that I was laid awake in bed, taken by insomnia. You know, I was a husband now, and I was a father, and I was preparing a future for my family. And his words came back to me, and I finally realized, you know, he's right. We are pretty pansy. You see, my grandfather was from what has since been characterized as the greatest generation. He grew up in the Great Depression. He was drafted for war like most of his peers. And one of the first things he knew as an adult was the feel of a standard issue Army rifle. I mean, he knew battle firsthand. I mean, he once told me that when they were headed into battle, it was often the Christians on the front line. See, most knew that the first wave of soldiers were just going to be mowed down. And the Christians had some sense of eternal security. Greater love has no man than the one that would lay his life down for a brother. And it was in those memories that my grandfather was molded. And as I looked at him, I could see a representative of a remnant slowly fading away. See, not long after was the 60s, and we saw the emergence of free love, a generation that refused to fight. And then there's my generation, the X and Yers, a group that no longer knows how to fight for anything. And we've passed that same pansy mentality on to the youth of today. But it's not just a characteristic of our secular culture. You know, I see it in people of faith. Even in my personal circle, I encounter good Christian people that have lost their fight. And because of that, I think many non-Christians, they just see us as pansies. But I don't serve a pansy God. And I don't have a pansy faith. And the Bible isn't a pansy book of stories. It's a record of men and women living and growing and fighting the whole way. You know, one of my favorite examples is Jacob. Jacob was blessed. He was in communication with God. He had been given dreams and promises from God. Yet one night, he makes an interesting choice. He sends his family away from camp and chooses to battle. But it wasn't just any battle. Genesis 32 tells us that he grappled with God through the night. And when the day broke, God demanded to be let go. And Jacob responded, "Lo shala ke'em barak." I will not let you go until you bless me. The word barak is very interesting. You see, a barak blessing is a blessing unto God, reserved for Him alone. For a man to declare such was blasphemous. And here was Jacob fighting God and saying to his face, "Bless me as you are blessed." Now God chooses to do something interesting at that point. First, He injures Jacob, by striking his hip, kind of way of scarring Jacob, an evidence of an encounter with the Creator. But then He does something really neat. He gives Jacob a new name. He renames him Israel, declaring that Jacob had battled God and man and had prevailed. You see, what's interesting about the name Israel is that it means to rule as God. Rather than condemn Jacob to blasphemy, God makes him an heir to all that is his. He blessed him Barak. Now what if? What if Jacob had never fought with God? What if he had just continued to pray to Him, receive dreams from Him, and be prosperous on earth? Many might say that it was enough, but he didn't. He wanted more from God, and his fighting spirit spawned that desire. Now, I'm not sure Christians today want more from God. I know we all say that we're seeking God, but when was the last time we really stood alone, ready to take a hit from the Creator in order to be blessed by Him? Are we really willing to bear the scars of an encounter with God? Most of us will never see an earthly battle. but we are constantly in a spiritual one. And our grappling with God serves as the best possible training for such battles. I don't want to be the pansy I've been in the past. I have a son and I have a daughter, and I know that I have to fight for them both, spiritually and socially. I can't afford to be the typical apathetic Christian I seem to see so often. It's time to wrestle with God and not to let go until He blesses. And it's time to show a lost generation of youth that there's something to fight for, and that no obstacle and no intimidation and no fear can keep us from the blessings of God.